Good afternoon and welcome to Block Grants and Community Development Advisory Committee's meeting of July 27, 2011. Roll call, please.
Committee members: Cornell.
Present.
Markarian.
Present.
Oganessian.
Here.
Olivares.
Here.
Persinanian.
Here. Next item, please.
The agenda for the July 27, 2011 meeting of the CDBG Advisory Committee was posted on Friday, July 22, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Item 2, minutes. 2A, approval of the minutes of the February 25, 2011, March 3, 2011, and April 21, 2011 CDBG Advisory Committee meetings.
Do we have a motion? Do we have comments?
I'll move, Mr. Chairman, that we approve the minutes of our meetings of February 25th, March 3rd, and April 21st as submitted by the recording secretary.
And I will second that.
Committee members: Cornell.
Yes.
Markarian.
Yes.
Oganessian.
Yes.
Olivares.
Yes.
Persinanian.
Yes. Before we go to item 3, we have a request to speak. I'd like to take that next, if that's okay. The person who'd like to speak is Janine Perron from A.D. Hirsch Mental Health Services, Glendale. Welcome.
Chair Sinanian, and thank you to the members of the CDBG Advisory Committee for allowing me to address you. I'm Janine Perrin, and I work with D.D. Hirsch Mental Health Services, and we're new to the community. When Verdugo Mental Health went bankrupt, we acquired them, and so we began offering services at the location on Colorado Street, the community clinic there, in late May. And I just wanted to very cordially invite you. I hope you'll be able to come to our open house on August 25th, which is our chance to really introduce ourselves to the community. And we're having all our community partners there and civic leaders, and we know how much good you do in the community, and we hope that you'll be able to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is the postcard, right?
Yes.
Do we
It
need
has
to
all the-
RSVP? Or?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind, that would be lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Look forward to being there. Okay, next item.
Item 3, reports. 3A, report by director, including introduction of new CDBG Advisory Committee member Alexander Oganessian and recognition of outgoing committee member John Sad.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, I wanted just to report that Jess Duran will be joining us shortly. He is in a meeting right now, so he'll be coming shortly. But I just wanted to make a couple of introductions, an introduction and a farewell to one of our former committee members. Our newest member, Alexander Oganessian, is certainly not new to the city of Glendale. He was raised through the Glendale school system here in Glendale. He is a business owner here in Glendale, has done very well, and he is a veteran, say this wrong, Navy? Army. And he also does a lot of volunteer work and very active in the community, not only locally but nationally. So I'd like to welcome committee members, and welcome the committee members, have them welcome Mr. Oganessian, and certainly wish him well with the committee. We've met once and gone over all the requirements, all the logistics of the CDBG Advisory Committee, and he's ready to move with us and put us in the good direction for this year. So I'd like to welcome newest committee member.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
If I may take a minute and say welcome, Mr. Oganessian also. Mr. Oganessian, welcome. We have a very cordial team here that has gone through at least the 3 previous years that I've been here through a very amicable process of allocating very scarce funds for a lot of requests. And the only reason it's worked the way it has is because of the atmosphere that exists here. So I welcome you here. I'm sure you'll enjoy being part of the group, and hopefully we can do some good.
I'm sure. Thank you very much, everybody, for welcoming me. It is going to be a pleasure. It will be my absolute pleasure to be on this board and to work with you all. Thank you for everybody that's taken some time off of their previous days to help me ease into this system. Thank you to each and every one of you that called and emailed. Just a little bit about me. I was raised in Glendale. I love this city very much. I'm very passionate about Glendale. I went through the Maple Park system, so I'm reading all these grants, and it's actually it's very personal to me. This is the city that helped me grow up. I did 8 years with the United States Army, 6 years with the Special Forces, involved in Desert Storm, Desert Shield, Desert Fox, Bosnia twice. Basically, it's been my pleasure to serve the country, and now it is my absolute pleasure to serve this city. And thank you very much for giving me that opportunity. And I am very sure that we will be making a lot of good progress. And for the last 3 years, because of the economic downfall, I'm sure you guys have had a very, very difficult job in trying to get these grants and to the people that actually deserve it. Let's move forward, and hopefully we'll see better economic results in the
We
future.
feel very safe you're here now. With all those services.
Thank you.
Very good.
Welcome.
I'd just like to make a comment, Mr. Chair, that all of us are thrilled, honored to have someone of Alex's talent, skills, courage, of what he went through in harm's way in deployment in Afghanistan and Iraq, to make the home fronts much safer for all of us here. And there's nothing more we can say but thank you,
Thank you.
and we're certainly delighted to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Mr. Carrillo?
Well, next we have a special presentation for our former committee member, and Mr. John Sadd, who was with us since October 2009 to May 2011. And with Mr. Sadd, we really, I'll call him John now, really helped us out with the challenges we had with financial accounting when we were struggling with identifying how to improve our CDBG program. And I think one of the things that we've now appreciate his talents was the understanding of our financials, and in getting very strong in that area for staff and for the committee to recognize that's an important part of the nonprofit world now, and we really need to be on top of the financials more so than any other time as a result of certainly the recession and reduced funding. But we wanted to recognize John for his efforts with the CDBG Advisory Committee. I think we have a plaque, which I guess will...
John, I guess now you don't have to wear a tie anymore, huh?
That would be... Yeah.
Can I say a few words? John, enough has been said about your professional contribution to the committee. Your presence has been invaluable. Really, you had some insight, and you raised issues that none of us could have possibly seen with the applications. However, I do want to mention that not only is the committee losing a highly qualified professional, but also an all-around great guy. You're going to be sorely missed. Wish you best of luck, and we'll be seeing you around.
Yeah. Thank you to all. How much time do I have, Mr. Chairman?
Spare just about as much as you want.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, city staff, first off, I want to congratulate you, Mr. Oganessian, and welcome you to this group. I have high hopes for you also that you'll do a great job, and I think you bring a fresh perspective to this committee, and I think it'll be welcomed. And certainly with your background, I don't think anybody's going to mess with the CDBG anymore. So.
I have very big shoes to fill.
I think we'll send it
But
to council.
I do wish you well. And to all of you, my former colleagues, it's been an honor to work with all of you. Like you've said, the fact that we've gotten along and we've had our disagreements and different opinions, but that we've come together with with a common voice for the good of the committee and for the good of the city, I think is something to commend all of you with. I certainly have enjoyed this so much because I've gotten to know well over 20 organizations in this city that provide, such services to the community, from the homeless to battered women to children's services to elderly services. This is really kind of a ground zero for a lot of stuff that goes on in this world. And I do look at the scarcity of the funds and, kind of worry about what's going to happen in the future, but I know that in your good hands you'll make the best decisions, and I certainly wish all of you the best. To the staff, you guys are great, and you provide leadership and you provide information to the committee that is invaluable, and you're an important cog in the wheel. And so with that, I wish you all well, and I like sitting in the audience here. I may just be joining you once in a while there. So thank you all and wish you the best of luck.
You're the best, John.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to add a few comments that were not made by Mr. Carrillo. Mr. Said was just recently by the GUSD board honored and bestowed the privilege of being on the Measure S, the Bond Review Committee. I know John just came off of the Measure K, which was voted in 1997. Did an admirable job with his colleagues in holding off any future bond measures for 14 years. I certainly hope that's the case this time when you're on, John. But coming from a homeowners association, I feel very comfortable with your appointment. And knowing that the school district is getting the best financial consultant advice that can ever be with yourself, being a CPA and among your other talents that you have, being on this board. And we're delighted. It's a plus for the community, for the homeowners associations, and for the residents of Glendale to have you on this board. And we certainly wish you the best.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cornell. Next item, please.
Item 3B, receive report regarding results of May 3rd, 2011 City Council Housing Authority meeting.
Okay, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, just if I could recollect, a few of you were here for that meeting, I believe, on May 3rd, and that's the City Council meeting where they approved the CDBG second round of recommendations. If you remember, we had a 16% cut in CDBG, and the committee had to regroup early in April, I believe, and have a special meeting to make some very difficult, challenging decisions, including about $88,000 in cuts in social services and other capital programs. So we did present your recommendations to the committee, to the council, and the council did approve the committee's recommendation, and certainly it was the committee made a very unanimous decision to agree to the system to provide those funding recommendations. So that was certainly a very challenging time for us, not having received such a large funding cut, but the committee did come through with some very good recommendations. And I know the agencies certainly were appreciative of the way the committee made the recommendations and allowed them to continue the programs, and we are definitely continuing with those programs this year. The second item, any questions on that one? If you want to see the funding amounts, I have those on a hard copy, just in case you don't have those. But I do have the hard copy if you want to see the funding.
I think we do have it too.
I'm not sure if it's in the packet for...
That's the revised recommended
Yes, the
funding.
revised
We have it.
We have it, yeah.
It's in the packet.
The second item, just to add to what the council asked staff to look at, the Pacific Park Artificial Turf Project is a project at Pacific Park whereby the actual park area where the turf is going to go into is part of the school district and city park shared area. That part is owned by the school district, and so we're going to work certainly with the school district to get the okay to provide funding for that artificial turf. Now, as we spoke just a minute ago, Measure S does provide funds for the school district to do improvements at most of the schools in Glendale. So one of the projects that might be identified on that list is Pacific Park Edison School improvements to the what we call the soccer field, the multi-purpose area. So staff is working with the school district now to determine if there is going to be a possibility of the school district adding some funding to this project, if at all, or if it's going to be on the lower end of the list of projects to improve. So we're going to kind of hold this project down a little bit so that once we know from the school district exactly if this project is going to be funded by the Measure S bonds or be a shared use of the funding, then we can come back with another recommendation for either another project or reducing the amount of funds for this project and adding it to some other. Right now, it's very early because, as we mentioned before, they're forming the committee right now for Measure S, and it'll take us certainly a few months to gather the list of school projects which will have use of the Measure S fund. So we're going to hold still and work with the school district and see if there's some report that comes out that might identify the use of Measure S for Pacific Park Artificial Turf Project. That project is certainly, it's there and it's been approved by the council, but we're still waiting to hear back from the school district.
So the pre-designated amount, is that going to be affected if the Measure S contributes to?
Yes, that will change.
That will change.
It would either if they're contributing 100%, then we can identify a different project, either at that park or a different priority, or if we share some of the funding with them, whether it's a 50-50, then it would certainly make some difference in where we would put the extra money.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Since that was pre-designated by the council, if the school doesn't use it, or it doesn't get used for that particular purpose, does that still belong in the pre-designated category, or do we get the opportunity to put it out to the public?
It's advisory committee, only VAR's members of the committee. It will stay in the pre-designated funding area, funding category.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Cornell?
Mr. Krellin, Measure S, I remember when looking over for and voting on it April 5th, that it was mostly for classrooms and that use. I think you mentioned that a portion of it, or part of it, will be allocated to that soccer field. Is that still in the ballpark? Because I attended the assessment when they're having the review for the public, and that wasn't gone over too well with that. In fact, there were about 40 people there, and it seems like most of the homeowners that were there were pretty well dead set against it. A lot of work still remains to clear the air and advise the residents there that there are more pluses and minuses coming over there. But most of the residents from my attendance there were pretty much against it. So is there any options on the table in the event that the homeowners veto that for other sites for this soccer field?
Well, it's really up to the school district to decide their priority list. I know the priorities are certainly classrooms first, the infrastructure of the classrooms, the technology components. So really inside seems to be their priority. And then certainly as money is available outside, whether it's playground areas or multi-purpose areas. But it's really up to the school district to decide how they're going to spend and how they're going to develop funding. And again, it's the committee, the Measure S committee.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Item 3C, status of federal budget.
It's an interesting subject.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, yeah, this is not certainly my well, if I was sitting in Washington, I can give you a better idea of what's going on, but
I'm not sure even that's the case.
yeah, I don't even know if they know what's going on yet either. But the general consensus right now is that the deficit ceiling, the debt ceiling, is the first item that needs to be resolved with the federal entitlements and the federal budget. We understand from reading through the process of getting CDBG funding that it goes through a committee process, certainly in the House. And at the time, just before all the news came around as far as the deficit, the debt ceiling, funds had been allocated to be determined how much each department gets to the Transportation and HUD Committee, which is a subcommittee for the House. Unfortunately, the funding they had provided them was about 14% less than last year. It was 16% less than the previous year. So at that time, the committee stopped meeting, and there's no feeling of how much the funding will be allocated to HUD. If different scenarios are if that remaining funds, which was developed by the House, continues to be reduced by, let's say, it's 14%, then it's up to the departments of HUD to decide how much do they want to reduce homeless assistance, housing assistance, CDBG, or the other HUD programs. Do they want to, distribute the money and reduce everybody 14% at the same time, or do they want to preserve Section 8 housing voucher programs, homeless assistance, and reduce the CDBG by even more than 14%? So we would have to wait certainly a few weeks before we know about the ceiling, and then maybe a month or so when we know a little bit more about the HUD funding, and then even that, a few more months to find out what the CDBG allocation is going to be. But it does certainly fall under the realms of reducing the debt for the U.S. government.
Guess we have no questions. Everything's clear to everyone.
Wait and see.
That we have to
Wait and
wait.
see. I mean, I was the president, yeah, but we wait and see.
Isn't there some kind of a time limit that they're supposed to exist for this to occur?
I believe they have until August the 5th, August 2nd, 5th. That is the 2nd to decide on the new measure for deciding on the debt ceiling.
Debt ceiling.
That's by both houses and the president. So far, there hasn't been anything.
I think this is the
yet.
third deadline so far. That's been.
They may do interim debt ceilings, interim like they do the funding. So it may be an interim negotiation and then probably a final.
Okay.
I did just want to mention a couple of things, just because HUD has certain things that we can do that staff is looking at, is to provide some letters to the congressmen, to the senators, and the committees that are overseeing the CDBG funds once the committees know how much funding you're going to get, so that we can, I'll use the word lobbying, so we can inform and lobby have the agencies, have the residents lobby the legislators to provide full funding for CDBG, not have cuts, since it's really important for our community to receive our fair share of CDBG funds, along with all the other funding for housing and homeless assistance. So we will be looking at a more of a proactive approach this year versus wait and see. Once we know that all this is resolved with the debt ceiling, and have our agencies assist us with contacting Congress and the committees and letting them know that these cuts would be very significant if we do get cut between 14 and could be 40% of our CDBG funds.
The city does have, Mr. Carlo, a consultant or paid lobbyist that represents the city of Glendale? there in Congress?
Yes, we do. Yeah, but I think, again, a lot of influence is certainly provided by community agencies, the faith-based organizations here, and our community residents as far as providing that input to Congress.
Okay, let's move on to the next item.
Item 4A, action items, selection of new chair and vice chair. At this point, the
I think
meeting
I'm
gets
supposed to
turned
hand
over.
it off to you, huh?
The business before the CDBG Advisory Committee is the selection of a new chair. I will now entertain nominations for that office. Mr. Olivares?
I'd like to nominate committee member Markarian. She'll accept.
I'll second that.
We don't necessarily need a second, but
Oh,
thank you. Are there any further nominations for the office of chair? Okay, we have one nomination for...
I would like to nominate Mr. Cornell for the chair.
How does that work?
how does this work now? Yeah. How does this work now? It's been a while since we went through this process.
So, my understanding that you do not accept the you would not like to be nominated for the office?
You
You don't accept
I
the
think we should
nomination?
clarify that for, I did this once, a few years ago. Once you're nominated and you nominate someone else,
Oh, that means
it's
that you're-
interpreted as you not accepting the nomination. So with that in mind,
No, I don't think that.
Okay, I would accept the nomination.
Okay, you will accept the nomination. Okay. Okay, so are there any further nominations for the office of chair? Okay, we have one nomination for committee member Markarian. Hearing no further nominations, we will proceed to the roll call. Committee member Cornell?
Yes.
Committee member Markarian?
Yes.
Committee member Oganessian?
Yes.
Committee member Olivares?
Yes.
And committee member Sinanian.
yes.
Okay, I now declare committee member Markarian the duly elected chair of the CDBG Advisory Committee. Madam Chair, the task before you now is to open the floor for nominations for vice chair.
And
You can
why don't
go
you
ahead
take
and
your seats?
swap
That
seats.
one. Cheers.
Are you going to rule with a
Iron fist.
All right, do we continue the nominations for the vice chair now?
Yes.
I have a nomination. The current Vice Chairman Cornell, I'd like to nominate.
I would second that. Mr. Cornell.
Mr. Cornell, do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Are there any further nominations for the office of vice chair? Hearing no further nominations, we'll proceed to the roll call. And that was for the nomination of Gary Cornell as vice chair. Committee member Cornell?
Yes.
Committee member Markarian?
Yes.
Sorry, that was Madam Chair Markarian. Committee member Oganessian?
Yes.
Committee member Olivares?
Yes.
And committee member Sinanian.
Yes.
And I declare committee member Cornell the duly elected vice chair of the CDBG Advisory Committee. Item 4B, review and approve 2011-12 program planning calendar and needs assessment strategy.
So,
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I just wanted to give you the outline of the CDBG program planning schedule for, now we're looking at fiscal year 12-13, so we're starting that process again of planning for next year. And you'll notice, of course, in this process, we do have this meeting as our first official meeting for planning for next year. A couple of just highlights. We did participate at the cruise night with the CDBG staff and provided surveys for the community. I believe we collected over 150 surveys from the community to identify priority needs and the wishes of the community for the assistance for block grant and housing, and other programs. I think that was a very successful evening and certainly got a lot of feedback from them. Again, part of our needs assessment is to have a meeting at the schools and ask the parents of school children there and the community at large to provide us input on the school process. So we do have a number of activities to continue to get community input. We also have a internet survey again that we'll put on the webpage to get some more information and survey data out there for you to review when we do our program priorities. But just looking at the schedule, certainly there are times when we do have meetings, and then there are times in months, actually you'll see the next few months, where we don't really have a meeting yet until October. But you'll see in September we do have the site visits.
Site visits.
But October will be our next meeting, October 12th. We expect to go to council on November 15th for the approval of the priorities, the funding amounts, the RFP. So it is a process where right now we're just building up our planning strategy and our needs assessment strategy, and then at the end of the year begin reviewing the proposals and having recommendations. This year we are going to be reviewing our RFPs again, and certainly one of the things that we've been participating with HUD, our HUD office is here in LA, as a result of continued pressures on cutting funds and being more efficient. HUD is coming with some new recommendations and some guidelines, which we'll begin to look at. One is a lot of cities do something that's very different than Glendale. They actually do have a limit on number of the dollar amounts that agencies can ask for. In other words, a minimum. Some go from $10,000 to $20,000 minimum for a social service agency to receive funding. Part of that is because the reduced staffing, the reduced HUD oversight, that some cities actually have done away with their social service funding and use it for more capital. On the capital side, they're looking at more economic development projects that could bring in jobs and versus more improvement type projects, and certainly the larger projects. Again, those are all just ideas what HUD is doing to provide cities some guidance as far as how much will HUD assist us with making things smoother and make it easier on the agencies and on the cities for administering block grants. But there's some things we'll certainly talk to the committee in the future.
Great, thank you. Okay, can we move forward? Okay, C, receive report regarding status of capital improvement projects and approve requests for extensions.
Actually, we do have a motion for item 4C.
Okay.
Sorry, 4B. Oh,
4B?
we're at 4B, aren't we?
Okay.
We do have it's an action item, so we do need to move to approve item 4B.
Okay, I would like to call this a motion to move forward with approval of agenda action item 4, number B.
I move that we accept it as presented to us.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Committee members Cornell,
Yes.
Oganessian,
Yes.
Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Markarian.
Yes.
Okay, item 4C, receive report regarding status of capital improvement projects and approve request for extensions. At 4C1, we have status report regarding capital improvement projects.
Is the first organization here? I think it's Glendale Adventist.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure how we wanted to handle it. Do you want me to do the reports on the agencies before we...
Yes, that will actually help.
Because I don't know if there would be a need for them to come up, but I can just give
A brief report.
update on that.
Sure.
Okay. Yes, the first one is the 2009-2010 Glendale Adventist Medical Center, Community Center HVAC, the Air Conditioning Improvements Project, which was funded a couple of years ago. And if you remember, the status of these projects was that there was a fire sprinkler Phase 1 project, and there was a fire sprinkler Phase 2 project. So the hospital and the community center are certainly moving along one phase by next phase. So this phase is the current project that we're having to go bid very soon. It has been a bit of a challenge because they had the architect leave kind of midstream during the design period. So Glendale Adventist and their project managers had to get a new architect. There was some other requirements by the mechanical and electrical engineer, which caused the design to change because of the area and the codes. There was a larger area than that needed to be for the refrigerated area, for the cooling of the areas. It was a large gym. And so there was a number of delays, but now we've gone with Adventist Hospital on this, and looks like they're moving along quite quickly now to get ready to bid out something in August. So I believe one of the project managers is here for any questions, but certainly it's staff recommendation that we extend their contract another year for them to finish by June 30th, which we know they will have this done by then. And we look pretty close to getting all the design work to the city so they can pull their permits very soon.
Okay. Anyone from Glendale Adventist? Yes. Hi.
Sorry, Chair Markarian, I believe we moved on to 4C2, is that correct?
Yes, we moved on to 4C2.
If I may just read it into the record.
Okay.
That's 4C2, Glendale Adventist Medical Center GAMC request for extension for fiscal year 2009-2010 GAMC heating and air conditioning HVAC project.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon. I would like to say first, before going to questions, usually I have my sidekick here, Bruce Nelson. He's in D.C. at a conference. He sends his greetings. Also, congratulations to Ms. Markarian for your chair now. Also, on behalf of Glendale Adventist, we thank you for your continued support for our community programs. We really appreciate it. As you know, with healthcare reform, there's reduced capital available because of the reimbursements to the hospital. So when we're spending most of our money on new buildings and things like that, so it really helps to have this money available to do the smaller projects, because if we didn't have this money, the work would not get done. So I apologize on behalf of the hospital for not getting these projects done in a timely manner. We're not spending the money. In the past, we've spent it pretty well in the first couple phases. This HVAC project, as Mr. Carrillo stated, we've had some problems. We had to terminate our contract with our architect, who we've been using for like 15 years. We had like 20 projects we had to terminate. We went through lawyers. It took like 6 months to be able to get through that and get the drawings from that architect and now to another architect that we've already engaged with our own money for this, and also the other project that's from the bathroom project, which is the next project on the list. So we're already ready. We're almost ready for both projects to go to the city. So I'd like to make you aware of that both projects, this one and the next one on the list, are very close to being ready to go to the city for plan review. And so I'll tell you, we're planning on spending the money this year. If we don't spend it, I believe we're going to tell you to take it back. So, any questions?
Thank you, Dan. So, do we need to decide on the item number 2 before we move to their next request? Because since we have him here, does he need to explain the second extension that they're requesting, or combine the two?
If you wish, we can combine the two, and I can just read the item into the record. And
I think
move on both
if everybody
together.
agrees, that's fine.
Okay, I'll read item 4C3. That is Glendale Adventist Medical Center GAMC request for extension for 2010-11 ADA restroom improvement project.
Thank you.
Right, and there's explanation on this one is we did not get the full funding from the last cycle to do both the restrooms on the top level and the bottom level of the community center. So We never actually signed a contract with the CDBG group. We requested funding for this year. We got that, so we are combining the two, and it will save us money in the long run to do both at the same time. And the architect, we already engaged them. They're, like I said, almost ready to go to the city. So it's going to be actually probably tough for Moises and his group to get our contracts ready before our architect's ready to go to the city and keep this project going. So this one is very fast tracked. We should have the 2010-11 project and the 2011-12 project wrapped up fairly quickly. Any questions on the bathroom project?
Actually, just general questions on both.
Yes.
If you're ready to go to, fairly soon you say to go to the building department,
Yes.
then you're looking at probably a month and a half, a couple of months to get through the whole process. Will that give you enough time to get bids in and start this process?
Yeah, so put together a timeline. We have built in a couple months to get the permits from the city, and then a month to go through the bidding process and the 30-day notification. And we plan to have bids back before the end of the year, and we have plenty of time at the first of next year to get things done before the deadline of June of next year.
Any questions?
Mr. Brown,
Sir.
yeah, reading the staff report here regarding your delays, it's regretful, but I'm happy to hear and see in the report it was, my concern was being the old building that it was back in 1928, that you would have difficulty in the asbestos abatement end of it. But I see that's not the case here, though.
Well, we have some money in the budget for abatement, just in case. There might be some in some of the old plumbing. We've removed quite a bit of ourselves in previous projects. When we demolished an old air conditioning heating system a few years ago, there was some there. We took it out at that time. So we've got money set aside for that just in case. So, any other questions? It's not me.
All right. We call.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'll move that we accept the staff recommendation. Are we just on item 3, or are we going to combine both of them here?
You certainly may combine items 4C2 and 3 if you desire.
Because I see Mr. Brown did combine both of them in
Sure, you
his
can move them
report here.
together or separately.
Yes, then I'd like to combine the staff report and recommend per staff report for items 2 and 3, that we accept the recommendations of staff and extend the time element here to June 30th of next year.
Second.
Committee members Cornell,
Yes.
Oganessian,
Yes.
Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Markarian.
Yes.
I'm sorry, point clarification, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if you're allowed to vote on this one. Do you?
fine.
Is that?
I work at
something-
Glendale Adventist, so I have to recuse myself.
You know what? You just lost your job.
That's right. Oh, I completely forgot. That's right.
I thank you, committee, and I know that Romello will keep on me to make sure we finish this. Thank you very much.
That I will.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we can move forward to action item number 4, C4, agenda item C4. Amendment Glendale ARA chapter request for extension for year 2010-11 roof repair project.
Madam Chair, if we might want to combine the two, just like we did
Yeah,
in the
they're-
last one.
Okay. I'll read would you like me to read
Yes,
the other one
please.
into the record? Item 4C5 would be Hominett Men Glendale ARA chapter request for extension for fiscal year 2010-11 safe and security at Hominett Men Center project.
Do we have any?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Summary.
Just again, the brief background. We do have a request for an extension for the roofing repairs at the This is the original Home Enactment building, the main facility, and it's actually, it is an extension, but Home Enactment is already out to bid for this project. They actually went out to bid a while back, but they did not receive any bids, so they're out to bid again, and we should have those bids coming in, I believe, August the 3rd. So they are certainly in moving with the project. It's just had some unfortunate luck with not having those bids. So we expect, the project to move along very, very quickly as soon as their bids come back in August. The second project is a safety and security project, which is fire alarm system and a security camera system. Now, that's at the newer building that's just been recently rehabbed, the athletic and cultural facility. And that project is moving along as well. The unfortunate part that the fire alarm system has taken a little bit more longer delay because of some jurisdiction issues between the City of LA and Glendale Fire Department, figuring out who's going to have jurisdiction and take lead over the plan check process. And it was decided finally that Glendale will take the lead for the project. So that's going to get back on track, we hope, within a month. But the other part of that is the cameras, and those are actually out to bid as well, and I believe bids are coming in mid-August for that project. So Home Enactment is well on the way. This is certainly a formality that we need to do to make sure that we're getting status reports on the agencies to provide the committee the status updates on their projects. So, but I think staff certainly recommends that we provide the extension request for Home Enactment on both projects.
Madam Chair, I see we have the executive director here.
Yes.
I was wondering if we might,
You have questions?
you could extend an invitation to have him come up and say a few things, remarks.
Mr. Gorgorian?
Good afternoon. At least it's given me an opportunity to congratulate you, Madam Chair,
Thank
for your
you.
chairmanship, and Mr. Oganessian for your membership in this committee. I believe Mr. Carrillo gave a very good explanation of where we're standing, why we are at this point. I really don't have anything to add. We're still waiting for Glendale Fire Department to give us a response, because I know that they are in communication with Los Angeles Fire Department. The two of them have to make up their minds, make a decision, and then we will go accordingly. I have mentioned to Chief Halpert that we would love to have Glendale be the jurisdiction to take care of this. So they are working for that, on that request, and the sooner we get the response, the sooner we will go out to bid. In that case, we have to prepare the plans first, but because we don't know what jurisdiction to work with, we don't know what they're asking for. But the other two, as Mr. Carrillo mentioned, the roofing is already we did the walkthrough, and the bids will be coming in mid-August, early August, and cameras, we are going to have a walkthrough on August 4th, and immediately, probably by the 20th, get the bids.
Thank you, Mr. Gorgorian. But just a quick question. Your organization is located in Glendale. Is it the 51% is majority of your building in Glendale, and certain, is it on a border of Glendale and LA? That's why there are two jurisdictions involved.
Unfortunately, the majority of it is in the city of Los Angeles. Out of 51,000 square feet of property, probably approximately two-thirds of it is in Los Angeles. But again, the big hydrant is in city of Glendale in
right,
our building.
You serve the Glendale community.
So
90% of your...
yeah, it's something that they have to make a decision and let us know what to do.
Okay.
Hopefully sooner than later.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very
Any
much.
questions?
Thank you. No, I have no
Okay. Thank you. I think we're ready to make a motion to move forward
I'll move.
with the recommendation of the CDBG staff.
Yes.
We would extend...
As for items 4C4 and 4C5.
And I'll second that.
Committee members Cornell,
Yes.
Oganessian,
Yes.
Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Markarian.
Yes.
Item 4C6, Door of Hope request for extension for fiscal year 2010-11 Hamilton Court Transitional Housing Electrical Upgrade and Installation of Smoke Detectors Project.
Mr. Carrillo, do we have a report on that?
Just again, a quick report. I know we discussed this project at length at our advisory committee meeting back in February, where Door of Hope requested to change their project from a windows replacement to electrical improvements, allowing them to use their $95,000 in last year's funding with this year's funding of $125,000 for electrical upgrades. They are well on their way for doing design work and doing, I know they've already talked to the city. The city's been out there as far as providing them guidance on where to put all the electrical panels, and they're ready to almost get their permit. And so they're asking, again, request for an extension of their 09-10 grant to June 30th, 2012. I don't believe they are here, but essentially this is another project that's moving along. Will soon go out to bid, and they'll soon have hopefully work started by the end of the year for their electrical improvements.
This is for the smoke detector project,
Smoke
correct?
detectors.
And the electrical.
Great, yes.
The projects.
I believe no one is here from Door of Hope. So.
If I may, Madam Chair. Moises, are you aware if they've submitted for plan check yet?
Yes, they have submitted for plan check. We did have a meeting with GWP to go over the requirements for the installation of the electrical equipment. So far, Maple Dow, Richard Dow is the architect, and Door of Hope is providing their own matching funds for the architectural services. CDBG funds have not been spent yet, because as we know, the new requirements are, and again, remind the committee for the new construction requirements as a result of council and the committee's recommendations to improve that process. So yes, they are well on their way for.
Okay, so they've flushed out all the issues they had with...
There's some minor issues, but so far it looks like we're going to be able to move with the project.
Yeah, and I think they're waiting for the permit. That's what it states in the report, and they already have paid all for the fundings, and they're just waiting for the permit, and the bidding will begin in September.
Yes, Madam Chair, they're ready to go.
Yeah.
How long has this been in process now?
Well, actually, the process for the improvements have been only a few months since the advisory committee's approval. The previous project, Windows, was under review and design when the fire department had a requirement to provide smoke detectors and hardwire smoke detectors. But the facility couldn't take that, couldn't add any more load to it. So as a result, they had to change it to electrical improvement. But design has only been about 3 months or so, maybe a little longer, but they're ready to pull permit very soon.
Well, I would like to move to a motion for accepting the staff recommendation. That means to approve and postpone the funding for next year.
Somebody else would need to make the motion.
Okay.
I'll move it.
You'll do that then.
After Robert's rules, you can't do it. I move we accept the staff recommendation for items 4C6 and the Hope and extend it to per staff recommendation to June 30th of next year.
Second.
Committee members Cornell,
Yes.
Ohanessian,
Yes.
Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Markarian.
Yes.
Item 4C7, Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County, NLS, request for change in scope for the fiscal year 2010-11 parking lot and traffic improvement project to the NLS roofing and window replacement project.
All right, Mr. Corello.
Okay, this one, Madam Chair, members of the committee, this one is also very similar to the previous one, where there's a CDBG-funded project for $81,591 for the Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles County, which had a request for parking lot improvements, and it was granted by the CDBG Advisory Committee and approved by the council After doing some design work, it seemed that the cost would actually be higher than anticipated. And in addition to that, there was the rain season that came in, which, as a result, they seemed to have certain roof leaks over the library and over the library there in the corner, and the main offices above the second floor. And that caused NLS to rethink the project and possibly identify a new project to repair the roof first, because that seemed to be the highest priority before any other damages occurred to that area, and especially where the library is. Apparently that's where they're getting heavier rains on that side. So NLS has made a request to change their project, scope of project, from the parking lot improvements to the roofing repairs and also window replacement. And also, of course, request an extension for June 30th, 2012 to have that extended to that period of time. Certainly, staff recommends to approve a motion to allow them to make the change in scope. They have been getting some bids and getting some estimates on the roofing improvements. We feel that's very strongly needed to have that done first before they can do anything with the parking lot, especially since the parking lot seemed to be a little higher than anticipated, well, a lot higher than anticipated because of some new code requirements. So the staff is here from NLS to answer any questions, or I can answer questions if you like as well.
I have a question for staff. Hello. Hi, welcome. I know the requested amount originally was $81,000, and now it jumped to $151,000. That is a very high number. I mean, there's a big difference, and for the parking, if you were to do the parking. And I think initially, yes, and initially when we approved it, and I think we all agree here that it was a matter of safety of public and, traffic control and all of that. But this is, the change of scope is going from something that was very important and we were very passionate about, and to windows. And I don't know how the rest of the committee members feel, but there were organizations at the time that they came and put in requests that were, we were very puzzled and we were kind of confused, and we were very regretful not being able to fund them because your project had a priority for us. But to me, I just want to see how we can prevent this type of, when we're changing the scope dramatically from parking to windows, that I'm not happy with that.
I guess maybe you can give us a short explanation of what actually happened during the design process that created this the situation.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for allowing us to be here today, and thank you for the work that you do. We are still very passionate about the parking lot project. It's something that very desperately needs to be done. As you're aware, the satellite library is underneath us. The children are constantly coming through there, and the traffic flow in that area is very important to us. So it is still a project that is very much on our list, and it's something that we would like to undertake in the next round of project funding. Unfortunately, with the economy the way that it is, we are primarily funded by government and foundation grants, and as you're aware, the economic situation that we're in, we have to maintain our roof and maintain the infrastructure that we work in, and this is a high priority for us, with the library literally right underneath where I work. I'm on the second floor, the library is on the first floor, and so the ability to get that roof repaired and to not have any infrastructure problems is a high priority for us, as well as upgrading the windows that are single pane. There's really no energy efficiency going on in the building right now. That section of the building, the 1102 portion of the building, and it really needs to get up to speed with the remainder of the building that has been fully upgraded, the 1104 portion. So we wish that we could do both. Unfortunately, we have limited funding, you have limited funding, the federal government has limited funding, and this is the area that we felt that is the best representation of the funds, so that we can get our roof secure and then move forward with a second project for the parking lot as well.
I guess I have two follow-up questions, and one may be better answered by staff. And I see this, I guess I heard the same question sort of asked before, and I want to ask it in a different way. The one question is, how was it possible that a project that now we believe costs $151,591, but was submitted for approval as an $81,591 project? That's one. I mean,
Yes.
where does this miscalculation come in? How is that possible? And secondly, which is what Ms. Markarian was asking, and maybe Mr. Carrillo can answer this, how do we prevent this type of thing from happening, where we make a conscious choice, considering the totality of circumstances that we're looking at during the approval process, which is the other applicants, the limited money that we have, and we're making choices as to who gets how much based on the project that's in front of us, and then, three-fourths into the process of this being actually implemented, we're told, oh, by the way, the money's going to go to a completely different project. And this is not to comment on the merits of the project, the Windows project, the leak. I mean, that is what it is, but the point is that we approved a different project. So you can answer the first question.
Certainly. Let me address your first question first as to why the original parking lot project increased from roughly $81,500 to approximately $150,000. One, there's in just simply redoing a parking lot, that's not a significant amount of funding, but we have to green and repave the parking lot and grade it in a way so that the water will slope and be collected and then properly irrigate the greenery that will go into the improvement project as it stands. That has turned out to be significantly more expensive than what we had originally anticipated, and now we feel that the true cost of that would have been $150,000, of which we were willing to put in the offset, the difference to complete the project. However, these other issues became more emerging, which is why we're bringing them here to this forum. As you progress within a project, things come up and unforeseen changes come up, and this is that type of situation where it has changed so much that it will cost us significantly more than what we're able to put into the project. Any questions?
What would happen if the committee decided to not approve the change in scope? What would you do?
Well, we would certainly hope that you would consider our recommendation. Obviously, these are priorities. We have the satellite library underneath us, which has already suffered some damage because of the roof leak, and it has caused some concerns. We do have some temporary patches in there right now, which are holding, but obviously there's no rain going on right now, and the
So
rain.
your goal will be to do a complete replacement of the roof, or simply do repairs?
Well, it is a repair of the damage as well as a replacement of the roof of the 1102 portion of the building. So it's both a repair and a replacement combined.
Now, this is the building. I'm going off memory now. You guys bought this building. The organization bought the building.
We
about
bought it
8
in
years
December of 2003.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's okay. And nothing's been done to that roof since then, since the building was purchased.
No, sir, not the 1102 portion of the building. No.
And how big is that building, the roof?
The
square
1102
footage?
portion.
Yes, the one that needs repair.
I don't have an exact figure, but we're talking about a $50,000 repair, $45,000 to $50,000 worth of repairs and replacement.
A couple questions, if I may. My main concern is, initially, when this was approved, I was not here. Now we're asking for an increase, almost double of what the initial request was.
We're not asking for an increase, no. We're just asking for a change of scope.
Change of scope.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Now, what happens? We're getting this $151,000 figure, I'm assuming, from one architect.
That is correct. It's an estimate, yes.
Now, it's an estimate. What happens if that increases to $250,000? How sure are we that this is
As
not
of today, we would not be able to complete that project. That is a significant amount of increased funding for us.
I understand that. And
Honestly, yeah.
why are we not concentrating on the more important, as first priority? Why are we working on a parking lot when we need structure, when we have problems with structure as far as roofing is concerned that could damage the building more and more? Why do we start with the parking instead of starting with the roofing initially?
The roof was not an issue. When the rainy season hit, after this project had already been approved, and we were well underway of moving forward with it, and we had already started to put up the additional funds to complete the gap between the 82 and the 150. We were willing to move forward with that, but then the rainy season hit, and then we discovered these problems with our roof after the project had already been approved and after to move forward. I mean, and as much as we're very passionate about this project and would like to complete it, unfortunately, the roof is our priority right now. We have to.
Well, it should be the priority because
It is
it's
absolutely our priority.
structure.
Absolutely.
It's a safety for the building, the structure of the building. But what surprises me is initially some kind of a survey or some kind of an somebody should have looked at the whole property before they made recommendations on the parking lot, because it's surprising to me that on one rainy season the roof could collapse or cause significant damage from one rainy season. So that problem was there and nobody actually.
Well, you have drains and scuppers in a roof, and over time they wear and they tear, and as the rainy season hit, and you all are aware of what the enormous amount of rain that we got this past fall 2010 compared to previous years, and it was enough to put a significant amount of damage, so that we do need to address it. It is you hit the nail on the head. It is a safety concern, and it is the primary reason for us wanting to change the scope of this project.
Have you actually obtained bids
I'm sorry.
for the roof repair? You actually have bids?
Yes, sir. We have multiple bids.
I think what you have attached is something that you agreed on, or you took this bid?
What is attached is a general contractor that we have worked with successfully in the past, and in working with us, we've obtained bids for replacement of the windows and replacement of the roofs. We have vendors and contractors lined up. We're ready to go. We just don't have money.
If I can go back to my question to staff, because I really feel strongly, it appears that this kind of a change of scope, where we're not talking about continuing the process because of technical difficulties. We're talking about money that was approved for A going to B. Again, B may be completely warranted, but that's not what we discussed at the time. How can are there mechanisms in place to prevent this kind of thing? Because, to be honest, the explanation that's given to us about how the parking structure, the gutters, whatever, was on, that doesn't satisfy me, that answer, because if a bid is being submitted to the city, I assume they've done their due diligence, and whoever has done the evaluation of the needs has done a proper job.
That was exactly my concern initially, is that somebody should have actually looked at the project and figured out step A, the roof needs to be replaced, or step B, what are the priorities that needed to be done, instead of going on the parking lot and then going to windows. Now, are the windows leaking at the present time, or are we just trying to replace them just because they're old?
If the rain, let me just clarify, because there's a couple of inconsistencies there. The parking lot is separate from the building, and it's a flat lot. It's not a structure, so it's not linked to the roof at all. It's completely separate from the building.
Right.
But if the rain were to come in sideways, it certainly could come through the windows. It is possible.
Do you have
There's
photos?
sections.
Usually we look at photos, and in the initial process, when there is a request with an application, they attach photos and the damage, so we just kind of take a look at that.
We have extensive photos of the roof. The windows themselves are not damaged, they're just single pane, and there's no energy efficiency, and the heat and the cool just literally comes right through it. So, but we have multiple pictures of the damaged roof.
Now we're
unfortunately.
basically indirectly
We're happy to
opening
share
it up
with you.
to an RFP process, where we have to
That's
consider the
interesting.
evidence. Right now, all we have to go is, to me, honestly, is staff's recommendation, because I trust staff. But otherwise, based on what happened previously with the parking issue, I am reluctant to just give.
And I think that's why we have this kind of meetings, to bring back the requests and then have them really, clarify. But at the same time, and I'm looking at the total cost is 86. We haven't had a project that we have approved the entire amount, and this to me is allowing the entire 81,000 staying here, is approving an almost the 99%, where we never did with our other projects that came forward that initial day, the RFP process. And to me, it's just not fair to completely fund the roof and the windows and everything because you came and you changed the scope. That is my feeling, but it's open to everybody. I mean,
If I can add to that, I mean, I think there are two issues here. One, obviously, and it's been said before, but one is clearly why the scope changed, and I think we've got that explanation.
right.
Whether we agree with it or not, something we need to discuss amongst ourselves. I did want to make a point that usually, Chair Member Onesia, when a project comes in front of us, we don't necessarily require them to look at the whole facility. It's a project-per-project basis, so the fact that they didn't look at the roof and didn't look at the windows then, it was a choice they made, so it's not something we would expect normally. But there is a change of scope, and I too have that. I'm an architect, and I have a bit of an issue with the cost not being closer to what the scope of work should have been to begin with, but that's where we are. So I think I've asked my questions of you guys. I mean, I understand what happened and what you want to do, but I think we need to make a decision sort of philosophical for the future, too. That.
Mr. Cornell?
Yeah.
We want to hear from you.
No, this is a whole new ballgame now for me.
Okay.
Pretty much the argument that Mr. Sanin was mentioning. Because if you had the roof here at the start, there's nothing more priority to me than having a good sound roofing over your head that you know it's not going to be leaking. I know you've been in that office now, I think, at least a good 3 years. Of course, we haven't had a rain like we did last year since El Nino back in, I guess, 2002, 2003. But, this is a whole new ballgame, I feel. It's just like starting the process, the funding again. I was looking at your second sheet here for the roofing, which compromises over half of your total that you're requesting. I don't see on the roof repairs the approximate footage that we're talking about here. Did you have an estimate by a professional roofer that has a C33 license here, C39, on approximately the amount of footage of the repairs that we're talking about?
Yes. I apologize. I don't know the square footage off the top of my head. I know the area that we occupy is well over a 2,000 square foot area. So it's not a significantly large roof, but it's a decent sized roof. We did obtain multiple bids, and they were all comparable, and they're all energy efficient. PVC material, so it would last. It would maintain. It would include a 20-year warranty, manufacturer's guaranteed warranty, and so it would be something that would last us over 20 years. So I know it sounds like a significant amount of money, but it's something that's guaranteed to last us for a 20-year period of time, and estimated to last longer.
So you said approximately what, 2,000?
The office space that we occupy is a 2,000 square foot.
What about the roof repairs itself? What's the area?
It would be the same. Would be the same, or if not slightly larger. Yes.
Okay. Okay. I know these changes do come up. I mean, that's why we're full of surprises. But I agree with my colleague here that it's a new ballgame because I feel going through this funding, and if you had this roofing here, I would have seen, or I would have voted for more allocations for you, for more funding, if this roofing was part of your package at that time, instead of just the parking. But there has to be some guidelines. I know Mr. Oliveros mentioned this in the past about extensions, about revisions at the last moment. And I hope we can eventually tackle this at some time, because it's getting to be more of the rule than the exception on these good cases today. So I appreciate your frankness coming back to me for these orders, but I'm not happy about it, but it's a necessity of life that goes on, that we have to address it.
And I appreciate that, sir. Thank you. And I would hope that our history with you all would stand on its own merits, that we've had other CDBG grants that we've completed in a timely fashion within budget and have not deviated from the scope of the project. And again, it was not our intention to deviate. This is something that Anita and I have been working on for a very long time. We're very excited about it, but it just, unfortunately, the roof is one of those infrastructure items that just sort of takes precedent for a nonprofit like us.
Are you planning on submitting another RFP this coming year for another project?
We would like to, yes.
Would that be roofing or it would be something else?
Well, we need to
That'd be
address the
roof.
roof immediately, so we could not wait for that round. And unfortunately, the roof, again, was not an issue or a concern when we had submitted the original application.
Thank you, Mr. Carella.
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I just want to answer the question about how we could prevent these. There really is no way of preventing a change in scope. We certainly bring that up to the committee, but I think the procedures should be developed in how we handle this. If I would have thought a bit more about this, suggestion came whether maybe they submit a new proposal and we give that to the committee, outlining the project in more detail, provide the photos and background. That would assist with the decision we made. But again, staff has looked at this. We've worked with NLS for a number of years. We do have a copy of their bid proposal for the roofing improvements. We know that one of the buildings is leased by the City of Glendale Library, and that one is the newer Adams Square Library, where we have some very unique architectural work there that could be damaged if, in fact, the roof continues to leak in this coming winter season. So staff, again, may have, the process may require us to get proposals or not, or the committee side, there are no changes in scope, and reapply the next year. But it really is the advisory committee's decision to make a recommendation to staff how they want to handle the scope of work. In the past, we have allowed scope of work a result of planning department or building department making changes or so on, and that we can't do anything about that. This is a different situation we hadn't seen before, but again, it's not unique where other projects have those roofing leaks, and that's a priority for them. I know NLS did try to fundraise and look for funding before they came to us, and wasn't able to look for the funding, and the only alternative was using their CDBG funds for this project. And again, if they're continuing to look at the parking lot and reapply for those funds, but we wouldn't be recommending to give them extra funds, but just utilizing funds and even using funds that are available just for the roofing project. If the windows needed to wait and need more analysis, then they can apply for the windows the next round. So again, the committee can make certainly those recommendations for the urgent repair, which is certainly the roofing, as we did for Armenian Relief Society, which we're working with now, as the roofing was the more priority versus the other kitchen improvements, the other buildings. There are some leeways, but there isn't any precedent or anything to prevent that under at least the CDBG rules. They are procedures. We would leave it up to the advisory committee to make those changes. I do think staff would need to request a new proposal and get some more details as far as what.
Yeah, I would really like to see probably more, just maybe some more reports or something that we can review. But roofing, I probably would be okay to just okay the roofing. I know that's something urgent and it needs to be done. I don't know how everyone else feels.
Mr. Carrillo, what you just mentioned here, since the library is a portion of what they lease, the roofing repairs is only pertaining to the portion they lease and not the library, or is the whole building?
If I could?
Committee Member Cornell, it's the library and a portion of the building, which is the main administration building, offices, Is that correct?
Correct. The building, it's in sections, but the 1102 portion is a two-story building. The City of Glendale Satellite Library is on the first floor, and our administrative offices, myself included, is on the second floor. And so the roof does affect both them as well as ourselves.
So, Mr. Cornell, it's the Chevy Chase
Yeah.
And Adams.
corner there.
Yes.
And the city has invested quite a bit of money on the facade and the improvements in so we certainly want to, if it was one of our buildings, we certainly want to have a insurance that would have to move money to protect the infrastructure and the improvements there. So,
Is there any way, Mr. Corella, that we can extend this, per your recommendation, and be able to deliberate more on the detail of the request so that it can still be included in the funding? There's a lot here, and I can see from the gist of the questions by all of us that we'd like to go on a little bit more thoroughly, but to not jeopardize the funding here. Is there any way we can just extend the portion of the funding, the request that you had made in your review here, and be able to tackle and review all of the rest at a later date?
Sure,
say
Mr.
something?
Sinani.
The recommendation of staff is to approve funding, approve the change of scope. What it is that we're requesting to see, whatever documentation, photos that they have, I'm sure the staff has seen. I don't think there's any really grounds for us to doubt the merits of the request, the merits of their need for the funding. Having said that, I think we just need to be honest with ourselves and answer this question. Are we willing to take a stand, like a principled stand, and say this is not okay because this is not what we approved, and what's happened is because of the applicant as opposed to anything the city's done or we've done. It's they have submitted a grossly underestimated plan, and on that basis deny this request? Or are we going to just say, well, they really need the money, and the staff has okayed it, we're not happy with it, but we're going to approve it? But to really delay this, ask for documentation that I'm sure at the end is going to satisfy us, because again, staff has okayed it. I don't know what purpose that really serves. I'm just trying to be honest with this whole situation, and I'm very unhappy with it.
Mr. Olivares.
Yeah, I agree with all that conceptually, and really in all the years that CDBG has been handing out funds, it's probably the first time that I recall where we're facing this type of situation. So
there's the precedent issue. I'm not sure we want to set this kind of precedent for the future.
So that, I think that's again a discussion we gotta have amongst ourselves and kind of take a position and see what we want to do. It's the exception, not the rule. A lot of the other scopes of work that has changed somewhat, the hospital, it's always been triggered by the fire department or something in the process.
Exactly.
So this one's a little bit different. At the same time, I know this organization has been around a long, long time. Through CDBG, I believe we've funded a lot of the improvements of that area. Storefronts and a lot of the area. So they're a nonprofit. Philosophically, we're in this position to help out the nonprofits as much as we can and hopefully prevent other problems. So it's kind of a balancing act here. I think we need to strike it. I'm with you. I don't like to see change of scope of work. I don't. I don't think you do either. But again, it's something that I think we need to discuss and see. Quick question for Mr. Carrillo. If they didn't use the funds and the committee said, no, we're not going to accept the change in scope, what happens to the money?
Mr. Olivares, members of the committee, there's several options. One is it could be rolled over to the next fiscal year for program planning for fiscal year 2012, 2013. There could be a project that is bidded out during this next few months, which has a need for funding. At this point, I don't see any project right now as needing funding, especially in the nonprofit sector, until we get bids. or it could go to any of the pre-designated projects for city. But right now, it would be probably on hold until there's a project that would be able to utilize it. At this point, we don't have other than providing it for the next fiscal year, a place for it, as we had in the past. So we know what bids are from several different projects.
And I seem to have the recollection that when we approved all these capital projects, I think we funded all of them. But I don't recall rejecting any of them, do we?
Right. Yes, Mr. Olivares, we did fund all the projects. They weren't funded 100%.
Yeah, that's what
All of them. Some were, as I mentioned, ARS, Armenian Relief Society, they were reduced from a general roofing and some kitchen work to just the roofing work. So, same as, I believe, Dora Hope had matching funds provided.
Exactly, we did not approve the entire amount.
That's a point that Chair Grigorian raised, that Markarian, I'm sorry, where, when we make these allocations during the process, we do consider how much we're cutting everyone.
Absolutely. Sure.
Here, the end result, if we are to say, okay, we're basically funding 98% of what they're asking for.
Well, if we talk about the numbers that are given here,
Yeah, right.
okay, if we took the position that, okay, we're going to consider the scope, I would certainly not support it today because there's not enough detail here. So I don't see where they have prevailing wages here. To me, really, this budget that's in front of us was put together very quickly. I understand you have some bids.
It was quoted at prevailing wage.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, but that kind of detail obviously is not here. Like when we look at these proposals every February, we get that amount of detail. So conceptually, we need to decide what we want to do. First of all, are we going to accept the scope of work, the change in scope, and then second, if we are going to go that route, then I think we need to get a complete package that shows where the costs really go.
Well, my recommendation would have been, just because this is an urgent matter and the winter is approaching, to at least extend the portion of the funding to the roofing and kind of allocate whatever is left to the next year's budget. That would have been my recommendation, but I would like to see more information. That would be, something that I think we all agree, at least the square footage of the size of the roof, at least that.
So I think that if we do go in that direction, we take the issue at hand, which will be the roofing. So certainly staff has been through the process before, evaluate the bids, look at the numbers.
Right.
Maybe at that point we either meet or they send us the information so we can comment on it. There are ways to go about it. I'm just not convinced that everything is here is the total package, if you will.
I completely agree. Because I'm looking at just numbers, and there's no backup to support any of the numbers here. We don't even know. I highly doubt we need $86,000 to repair a 2,000 square foot roof. Now, I'm not a contractor in any way by far, but those numbers do not look real to me at all. So at the present time, my decision would definitely be no. At least we have some more, at least we can get some more support as far as, my recommendation to you guys would be, let's look at the priority first. Number one, take care of the safety issue. If there's people actually occupying the building, the safety issue needs to be resolved immediately first before winter hits, another storm comes in. That would be my recommendation. Let's evaluate, get some bids on what's the safety issue for the building. Let's at least start from there. Get the safety done first. We can always worry about the secondary issues later on.
All right, so we have two members of the committee who actually would like to see more documentation supporting what you submitted, right? What Mr. Oganessian?
Yeah, I have one question. How soon could you move on the project if you had the money on the roofing?
As soon as we're able to sign contracts and the process for putting it out to bid. Again, I've already identified vendors. We have a general contractor we work with. We do indeed have actual prevailing wage bids that have been submitted. I believe the first letter had the roofing bid attached to it. Unfortunately, the second letter did not have it. But I have it with me if you would like a copy of it, or we can certainly email it
Sure.
to Mr. Carrillo.
Mr. Carrillo, when is our next meeting? I mean, is this
October
something?
12th.
Okay, well,
October 12th.
that's
I mean, again, the committee could have a special meeting
right.
for this item or any other item that might come up. Give NLS enough time to provide the details, what's a revised proposal or just revised work descriptions and probably a needs statement on that.
I'd like to make a suggestion. I think I've asked all the questions I need to hear from them, and then we can have a conversation about where we want to go with this. Unless somebody else has more questions for them.
Any more questions?
I think we need to get to the meat of the bone here.
So, Mr. Sinanian, you agree that we need to get more documentation supporting? The request-
Honestly, my position is I'm not sure how. I sort of have more of a policy / theoretical, philosophical issue with this than a practical one. If their paperwork wasn't intact, I don't see how the staff would have approved the change of scope. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of documents. But hey, listen, more documents is better, sure. Maybe it'll justify for some of us, to ourselves, we can justify to ourselves why we will vote for
Right.
approving the change of scope. But again, there's all these issues out there. I mean, are we setting a precedent? Is this really okay?
But I think if they had come at the first time, they came to us with an RFP and for the roof, we probably would have accepted that. That's what I'm saying. I mean, it is something that it's much needed, and I think for us to say that because they changed the scope and let's not even approve it, to me, that's wrong, because roofing would have been something that we would have approved.
It's
Just
not
like,
It's not so much the change of scope as it is the way the scope is changed. It's not just we were going to do the parking work, but the priority has changed because of the rains. That would be very easy to
Right.
buy mentally. But here it's something different. It's, well, the money's not really enough for a parking job anyway, so we have another priority. Let's give the money to that. That's different.
Yeah, well, that I don't see it that way, since they're saying it really is a priority and there is a leakage and the winter is approaching. So I wouldn't be comfortable transferring the entire, 81,000, but at least the roofing, which is here, very important, I would like to approve that. But again, it's everybody's decision.
The basic question to us, to ourselves, is:
What is it we want to do?
are we going to accept changes in scope of work in the future? And are we going to start today? That's really the question. And
it's a big scope
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Especially,
now the merits and what the project is, and I agree. If they had come with the roofing, because we had the Armenian Relief
funded
Society
many of
come
the
with
roofing
a lot
projects.
of maintenance issues. We had a long discussion about that. So it's kind of a very twitchy position at this point. I personally agree with the scope of the work. I'm not convinced that it's everything in front of me is. I'm convinced it's exactly what it is, but I would be willing to support a portion of it, at least in the interim. And I would actually offer that maybe we can table this issue for the next meeting or another meeting where we can, if we're going to go that route, where we look at the detail.
Cornell?
Yeah. We have a priority here, I don't think from the feedback from all of us that spoke so far are not happy, but there's a need out here. They perform a vital service to the community in that area. And what I'd like to do is I surmise the first time around, is to extend this so it is viable for the funding to still be there. And we notice also in our packet here that the NLS is putting up a good portion of their own money on this and coming out of their pocket. We have the rainy season before us, starting, November, December. We don't know if it's going to be as severe as last year. Only Mother Nature knows that. But it's a priority on the roofing. It has to be dealt with. It has to be addressed. And this member feels that it should be addressed at this time. Now, I like to see perhaps maybe a two-phase where we can extend the funding and come back to address this maybe in a special session before October and address all of this here, but extend the funding so that we have this on the table and we know the funding is going to be there. My recommendation.
Thank you. All right, so what do we have here? A mixed recommendations?
I'll make a motion.
Sure, please.
I'll make a motion that we table the item at this moment. Actually, it's kind of strange because can we do that? Can we table it and condition it? At the same time, we really can't.
Yeah, we can condition.
You could table this action item.
Okay, so my recommendation would be to table it and to consider it at a later meeting. And I think they know what they need to do.
I'll second.
Have a time estimate on how soon that could happen? Because the contractors that we've been working with, since the leaks have developed, we've been sort of scurrying to get this repaired, and so we've been sort of in constant communication with them about where we are in this process as well to line up funding. So if you could give us some feedback about the timing we're looking at, then we can at least help keep the contractors we have now.
Thank you, Mr. Correa.
Well, our next meeting is October 12th. So that's the timeline. Unless there's a meeting in between, between now and...
Would it be possible to get a special session meeting, or?
I don't know what the size it is.
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Would it be possible to get us, I'd heard the possibility of a special session prior to October 12th?
Oh, yes.
They're asking if it's
Yes.
possible to have a special
Yes.
session.
Yes,
You have to
and
give you a
yes.
date on that, but we can't give you a date right
Certainly,
now.
certainly. And can we just clarify what additional information you all would like to have so we will have that prepared?
We'll
for
ask
you?
the architect. I think, Mr. Olivares, what additional information? I know the square footage is important. What else?
I
Maybe
think
different
it's,
meetings.
The RFP package,
It's what we typically ask on an RFP package. It's just like when you submitted your budget estimate for the parking lot. It's the same package. You need to look at bids, actual bids that have areas, that have square footage cost, prevailing wage included, overhead and profit. I see some of that here, but it's no different than, I think that's what staff is there for. They'll help you along with that package. I think you heard from us that we're willing to have a meeting to look at whatever you can put together. So it really, to answer your question, it depends on you.
I'm just not quite understanding the delay. We do have bids, that's what's been provided, and they are prevailing wage, and we...
Would you be able to submit all those within the next 2 weeks?
I have them right here with me today. I have the bid.
We're not going to consider those today, I don't think, because the RFP package is a very specific package that every other entity that came here had to put together in a certain way, and I think that's what we'll be looking
We
for.
had 3 weeks to look at it before the actual meeting.
Yeah. And so it would be very difficult for the 5 of us to sit here and go over whatever you have at this point in time. So I think you need to take the time to submit a normal RFP package, and we're bending here to
I appreciate that.
to consider it. So
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Correa?
Just a question. The estimates that you had, well, there's a roofing estimate, the 46,700, but there wasn't a window estimate other than what I think is on Kango Development. Is that your architect or a contractor?
That is our general contractor who obtained bids, and that was the bid that they recommended and included in their total package that they provided to us, yes.
Well, this is a project estimate based on a general contractor that you just took
Yes,
from.
but included.
He didn't put on
it.
letterhead or he didn't put anything on any type of official document. It's just written out.
That's the bid that they provided in the manner that they provided it to us.
We'll have to work with NLS to get details and get more specifics for the...
yeah, I think you need to look at it just like a typical RFP package that we
I'd like
look
to see
at.
more formal,
Yeah.
I think.
I think if you have all the
Proposal.
sub-bids right now, it shouldn't take you very long to put it together.
All right.
Yeah, Mr. Carrillo, one thing that concerns me when we're with this motion under discussion here is the loss of the funding for NOS. Now, the reason for this is to be able to continue this funding into June 30th of next year. Now, if we don't act on the funding and delay this, would that jeopardize the funding for NOS?
No.
It won't?
No.
Okay.
It would be reallocated, right, for the next upcoming year?
So my motion's still on the table, so I would like to table the item, propose to table the item until such time as they submit a package, and then we'll consider it.
I did have a second from Committee Member Cornell.
Yeah, I did second, yes.
Should I proceed to roll?
Yes, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee Members Cornell,
Yes.
Oganessian,
Yes.
Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Markarian.
Yes. I just have one more question for Mr. Carrillo. I mean, I know that we don't have this as a standard if they're changing the scope of the request. I think what Mr. Olivares suggested, like to start from scratch, submitting a new proposal, a new RFP, this may actually be a standard that will eliminate the future, request to change of scope, and this may kind of set a precedent. This is the standard. If you decide to change the scope, it won't be just a request in a letter. You really need to go back and do the entire process all over again. So maybe this will kind of...
I would even add to what you're suggesting for anybody who's considering other projects in the future, is that we will not even look at it unless there was a complete package submitted.
Right. Because we spent like an hour and we still don't have a decision. So, but if we had the packet prior to our meeting, then we would have come to a decision. And I'm sorry you were here so long too.
Our main problem is I agree with Mr. Sinanian completely. It's an integrity issue within ourselves versus a safety issue for them. And you cannot put neither one of it, neither side per se, in front of the other. So it's hard to say yes, it's hard to say no. It's just, there's just no details to make a decision on. It would be great if we had something to make a decision on, so after the decision is made, we don't feel bad about making that decision, at least to be able to justify the decision.
All right, thank you. Iris.
Item 4D, review and approve CDBG site visit schedule. And I do believe that the speaker card you have was for this item.
Yes. CR Legal Senior. Yes. Mr. CR Legal Senior. Yes, please come forward.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be present. Actually, I thought that I would speak after you had a chance to have some discussion on the schedule item. Is that your protocol? Is it I'm to speak
This
first?
is coming up, actually. Our site visits?
Yes.
Or? That's 4CD, I think, review.
4D. And it is up to you if you would like to hear the speaker before you discuss the item or after. It's your decision.
Well, we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
First, I want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
As you bring a new spice to the meeting. And also to the other board members. You do important work, and I'm glad to see that you take your work very serious. Also, is the public responsibility to be involved, and also encourage you in making the right decision. I noticed one of the items you wanted to consider if they had the package, and I agree with your conclusion. It would be a violation of the Brown Act, as I understand it, if you're not able to give due process notice to the public ahead of time for items you're going to act upon and consider. So I would agree with you on that point as well, as far as continuing it to give us an opportunity. On the site schedule, I think it's very important that you have this and you actually go out and visit because not all boards do this, to actually go and visit. They see what's going on. I think that's an excellent integrity issue and transparent issue, and to see what violations. I have a couple of questions. It's just an inquiry because I'm still learning in this process, and you're obviously becoming good experts. On the CDBG, if you find violations, I'm assuming this is part of your point, going out to the site. If you see violations in the project that also violate HUD guidelines, what is the consequence? That's one question. Maybe you don't know the answer now, but at some point the answer might be able to be ascertained. And then also, just for point of information, the NAACP is having their big convention this past weekend and up until Thursday. And one of their focus points is employment and housing and the use of the CDBG funds, which is very important to, I guess, some startup organizations. I don't know how much time I have, so I'm almost finished. So those are my concerns, and also how to access the CDBG monies, and when is it actually available to community nonprofit organizations. I think the funding starts July 1st, but I don't know actually from the July 1st when does the funds actually become available to community organizations. And one of the organizations I'm with is Sober Men Incorporated. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any more cards? All right, can move forward to review and approve site visit schedules. I'm okay with the dates. I think they all work for me. Have you had a chance to kind of review the dates? Unless it really rains and pours, then we have to reschedule. But other than that, I think...
We can go check.
Didn't stop us last year.
And we can check the roof. Didn't stop us last year. That's right.
I would like.
All right,
to
so
move
we
that.
have a motion for that?
Sure.
For approval?
I move that we accept the recommendations of staff for the review and approval of the CDBG site visit and schedule.
Second.
Thank you.
Committee members Cornell,
Yes.
Oganessian,
Yes.
Olivares,
Yes.
Sinanian,
Yes.
Chair Makarian.
Yes.
Item 5, other business.
Can I, the gentleman, the speaker, asked about, basically he was asking some questions about the process. How does one access CDBG funds, and what the timeline is in terms of releasing the money? And I think that question is easily answered. I think part of our package was the projected schedule for when the RFPs will go out and deadlines are. Maybe we can provide him with a copy of that.
Or it's on the web.
Or it is on the web, but who knows, maybe.
Well, I would like to take this opportunity and thank Mr. Sinanian for his leadership over the past 2 years. His contribution really led us to a great outcomes every time. So we thank you, your commitment. You were here every time, and very, very happy. And it was a pleasure having you as a chair. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Second. I
Madam
second.
Chair, I have something to present to Mr. Sanani.
Yes.
Due to the extraordinary leadership, and this is 2 times around, I have to ask Mr. Olivares if this has ever happened. And I'd like to present this plaque on behalf of all of us. And I want to tell our audience there's no public funds involved in this. It's all of us here that pitched out. And for your extraordinary leadership, I'd like to present this plaque to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
We're not getting rid of you. You can still.
No, you're here. No.
I hope not.
So if you don't have any other business, can we adjourn?
I just want to welcome you, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
thank you.
And I think you'll do just as well as Mr. Sinanian did.
Thank you.
You're going to keep us in line, I'm sure. So, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you for the
Congratulations
confidence.
indeed.
Madam Chair, before I make a move for adjournment, I would just like to reiterate, we had a very vivid roundtable discussion on these changes and so on. This is not the first time it happened. It's not going to be the last. But I would like to see if we can have staff, and per your recommendations as well, put this on the agenda so we can have a roundtable discussion on this, because there's a lot on this. There's changes, there's time. And I think in the future, if we have some guidelines that are from this committee that we are going to make a recommendation on after we brainstorm this, that this will better serve all of us here. And so maybe perhaps you can work with staff and have this on upcoming agenda so we can tackle this.
That's a good idea. Would you make note of that? Thank you, Iris.
And with this, I'll move for adjournment.
Second that. Thank you. Adjourned.